Brenda Aisling and the Cape Ann Museum. You might have heard of that.
Maybe.
And they have been involved with a Cape Ann student arts exhibition. So this is an example of engaging communities, probably through both Gloucester and Rockport Cultural Councils plus. And we were happy to support it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, nice to see you all. My colleague Kathy is also here. I don't know if you can say wherever you want.
Okay.
So let's go from the beginning here. And we do have I brought some flyers for the exhibitions in the back and for our current programming. But yes, wonderful to meet you all. My name is Miranda Ashleen. I'm head of education and engagement at the Cape Ann Museum. And I'm here to talk a little bit about our ongoing Cape Ann Museum student exhibitions, which are actually on display right now at the museum. So if you are so inspired, you can head over at some point before June 8th. So we started these in 2021, actually with a kind of broader community exhibition, which kicked it off. And since 2021, we've worked with over 1,600 local students. Our goal is to reach every grade level when we choose a grade level to work with for a given year. So I'll get into how that's developed over the past couple years. And the exhibitions really celebrate student artwork alongside the professional collection. My background is personally as an artist. I know Kathy, who I work with, is also an artist. And so we're really inspired to try and help students see themselves as creators and as part of the great Cape Ann legacy of art and culture, which is why it's been so great to be supported by this cultural council and some of our others across Cape Ann as well. I'm guessing most people know our campus, but whenever I go off, I do like to show the picture of the campus because it's a lot larger than most people think it is. So that front bottom left corner is the Captain Elias Davis house, which was our first permanent home. But it's fun to see in the drone footage that we have our courtyard where we do our courtyard concerts. This photo is actually from our annual Gloucester So Salty Festival. So there's a tiny little ice sculpture down in the corner of the courtyard in this photo. And then the student exhibitions are always on the third floor in kind of that second building back. So the second pointy part under there is where you'll find our Cape Ann student exhibitions. So one of the first ones we did, which I think actually some folks in the room might have participated in, was Quilted Together, an exhibition of community portraits. And that really grew out of the COVID time period, right? We were wanting to engage with the public and get artwork in people's hands. So here you can see a sampling of the over 600 community portraits that were installed in the Janet and William Ellery James Center at the Cape Ann Museum Green from September through November 2021. And just a fun little note, the 3 young individuals here are all CAM Teen Council members. So they did their own portraits and then found themselves on the walls in the gallery. So this led to our first Cape Ann student exhibition. It's called Sculpting Self. And I know we are talking about what we got funded for this year, but the Rockport Cultural Council has really generously funded all 3 of our Cape Ann student exhibition years so far. So we really appreciate that and wanted to share what we've done to date. The goal is always to take a part of the collection and activate it through education and through creation. So we started in April of 2022 with 8th graders across Cape Ann. So in this year, I won't make you put yourself back in that mindset, but just as a reminder, from this 2021 to 2022 school year, kids were still not really doing field trips yet, right? The COVID restrictions were really strong. So the Cape Ann Student Exhibitions was one way to try and engage with schools. We went to the schools, we brought all of the materials, we tried to bring materials that maybe the schools wouldn't have access to on their own. So this first year we did paper clay sculptures inspired by Walker Hancock's basketball players at the Cape Ann Museum. And we asked every student to make a sculpture of themselves doing their favorite activity. So we had almost 400 sculptures by 8th graders spread throughout. And we always emphasize that we display the student artwork with the same professionality, the same museum experience as we do any of our professional artists, whether that's Fitzhenry Lane, Edward Hopper. We try and make sure the students can see themselves in that pipeline and trajectory. So here are some of our fun photos of kids making their sculptures. They had to often physically figure out what the sculpture was. So we had one yoga student showing off there, which was great. And then last year, we did A View from My Window, which was our second 8th grade project. And this was in response to the major Edward Hopper exhibition we had at the Cape Ann Museum in 2023. And Hopper, of course, came to this community, to Gloucester specifically, painted the area, and then returned to New York, and that helped really launch his career. And so we wanted to ask the students who potentially live in the houses that Hopper painted to look back at Hopper through their own views. So they did A View from My Window, and we had, I think it was over 25 windows, because there's some on the backside too. So all of the 8th graders made plexiglass student kind of little picture frames that Louise Men installed in these illuminated windows at the museum, and we did have several up during the Hopper exhibition as well. And I think this is hopefully just another example of the professionalism that we put into the work. And we hammer that home when we teach the students as well, to say, what's the difference between seeing 400 pieces of artwork taped to a wall and this, right? This really elevates the students, it makes themselves take it seriously, and it helps them hopefully get interested in what museums do, how we shift the narrative, and how by carefully curating and displaying artwork, we can help tell a story in the area. So here are some of our Rockport kids doing the sculpting, or doing A View from My Window. And actually on the left here is Savvy, who's now a teen council member. One of the reasons we do 8th grade as our first touch point for the Cape Ann student exhibitions is that the students can then apply to the Cape Ann Teen Council. So if you know any teenagers in your life, we are open right now for our 4th summer cohort. We pay teenagers to work at the museum year-round, but they have a big session in the summer to get them started. That's actually why I missed the first half of the presentations this morning, because we had 9 teenagers in the museum helping us with some upcoming art activities. So I'm going to turn it over to Kathy to talk about our 3rd grade exhibition last year, and then we'll get into this year. So you can see the upcoming slide too.
Okay, where am I using
Just the clicker. Yeah.
So hi, thank you for having us. I'm Kathy Kelly. I'm the education manager at the Cape Ann Museum. I've lived in Rockport since 1996, so it's really fun to be here. And I have started at the museum. I started in 2022. So I entered in the first year that we were adding a 2nd grade level to the signature level, our signature programs that were happening at the museum. And I worked on organizing and leading the 3rd grade program. And where the 8th graders are, like Miranda was saying, they're really responding to one of the artists or the exhibitions at the museum. We like to have sort of an annual celebration of Virginia Lee Burton, who is a leader of the Folly Code, was a leader of the Folly Code design group in Lanesville. She's a prominent part of our collection. And the children in Cape Ann, so Gloucester, Rockport, Manchester, Essex, they're reading Virginia Lee Burton's books in the 2nd and 3rd grade. And so it's a really nice way to tie what we're doing to what the schools are doing. And I like to say that we're trying to be, in addition to being a destination, a place that teachers know is fun and engaging and enriching for the kids, we really try and be a partner. And Miranda had referenced that we're trying to work with every student every year. And so we're really developing these partnerships with teachers, finding out what they're teaching, and trying to add to that, trying to provide experiences that help them do that, right? So rather than being something in addition to what they're doing, we're trying to enrich and support what they're doing. So celebrating Virginia Lee Burton is a wonderful cultural tie-in, and it's also something that allows the kids to revisit a topic they've already learned about in literacy and look at it in a different way, and to tell stories visually and to engage in process. So this year, or last year, was Our Place, Our Stories, and we worked with 3rd graders. It's a 2-part visit. The first visit, I or a camp educator comes in and teaches the students about the Folly Code designers. We look at their prints, we do some visual thinking where they learn strategies for looking at art and making meaning of art and connecting it to their own lives. And then they start the technical process of making a block print, which is the same process the Folly Code designers used, except that rather than wood and cutting tools, we use styrofoam and pencil. So a little more age appropriate, grade appropriate. And then we return the second class, and in a whirlwind experience, Every student gets to make 3 or 4 prints, and it really gives them an opportunity to understand what learning craft is about, right? It's an experiment. We're trying something we haven't done before. How much ink do I put on? They asked me. I said, well, roll it on and take a look. And what do you think? And how did it print last time? Do you think you need more? So great to get kids really looking and understanding. Things don't happen immediately. We put time into it, and they're super proud of their work. So for this year, all the students made prints. We talked about a sense of place, and this sort of ties into astronomy. I would say to the kids, if you were way up in a rocket ship and looking at the Earth, everything would look like rock and land and water. Why is it this place? Why do we call it home? What makes a location a place? And that's a concept that students in college are dealing with. So this is a really little nugget, and the 3rd graders really get it. And so they were challenged to make a print that showed their story, something that made this location a place, a home to them. And all of their prints were displayed in these books. There was one for every school in the 4 towns. And they also did a reflection, so a little literacy piece while they were writing an artist statement about what their print was. They were wonderful. And then their prints were printed on banners because the Folly Grove designers did a lot of work on textiles. So it was another way to see how their block could be used in different ways. All right.
And that gets us to this year. So like we said, every year in the 8th grade, we try and pull from a different part of the collection, really tying into our special exhibitions. So what is currently on display at the Cape Ann Museum is Snapshots, the Cape Ann 8th grade exhibit, along with the 2nd and 3rd, which Kathy will come back to talk about in just a moment. And this year, hopefully some of you saw the Above the Fold, the Photographers of the Gloucester Daily Times exhibit that was on display from December of last year until March. And of course, that's when we were doing our school visits to create the artwork that goes on display at the end of the year. So for the 8th grade, we printed out 88 reproductions of historic photographs from the collection, and students had an opportunity to collage them to make their own individual stories in the shape of Polaroids. And I have had so much fun with these. Not only did they collage, we then taught students about the history of color photography, right? And the fact that photography was originally mostly black and white, and that artists would hand paint the photographs, which can be a new concept to modern day 13-year-olds. So in a second visit, as Kathy mentioned, all of our Cape Ann student exhibition projects, we do 2 visits with the students. So they see us once, they get to know us, they hopefully get a little bit curious for the next time we come back into their classroom, and then want to come see their artwork at the museum themselves. So for the second visit for the snapshots, we then added acetate on top, or just like a thin see-through piece of plastic, and the students got to colorize their own historic photograph collages. And in a last-minute addition, which I'm really glad we threw in, because they're Polaroid shapes, I think probably as many people in this room are familiar with, people would write in Sharpie on the Polaroids what had just happened. And so the students had to come up with stories or titles for each of their pieces of artwork, which when you come and see almost 300 of them right now up at the museum, you'll see these beautiful snapshots into students' stories. Some of them are really funny. There was one with a giant cat in it called Cat-tastrophe. Even 13-year-olds like their puns. We have one about a Godzilla seagull, because there was a very large seagull in proportion to the other portraits. But then there was also one about kind of the fishermen, I think fishermen at the heart of Gloucester. And it was photographs from the 1800s that they put together with schooners and other pieces. So it really shows you the breadth of thinking that eighth grade students are engaging with. And even in the silly ones, they're adding a layer of complexity and story and thought to the artwork to present it in a new way. So again, the presentation is really important, and one of the ways we kind of sync the students, because whenever you walk into a classroom as an outdoor educator or an outside educator, you have kind of like 5 minutes where the kids decide whether they're going to listen to you or not. Because they know they have to listen to their classroom teachers. And one of the ways we sync with the students and get them engaged and hook them in the project is by telling them that we are going to present their work professionally and we need them to take this project as seriously as we take it. And I'd say the 8th grade is a little harder sell than 2nd and 3rd graders who are just really excited. But I'd say we get like 85 to 90% of the 8th graders when we present it that seriously. And we take a lot of care. You can see up on the wall, those are 2 current 8th grade students, one from Rockport, whose text, whose own words are on the wall of their local museum. And those are, 8-inch tall letters. So they get to see themselves large and upscale. The smaller white pieces are also additional quotes from students. So again, you can hear more from them in their own words. And just a sense of what it's like in the classrooms. This was from a visit to Rockport Middle School. And you can see all of the historic photographs strewn all over the table there as they're crafting through them and cutting them. And one thing that I didn't realize going into this project, because I'm not from here, was that even our 13-year-olds recognized over half of these places based on location. So they could look and say, oh, that's that beach, or that's that lighthouse, or that's in that part of the harbor. So that's one of the things that I love so much about these projects is how deeply place-based they are and how the students can see themselves, their stories, their creativity, and their history all together in one project. And I'll turn it back over to Kathy.
Thanks. So we decided this year to switch things up a little, and for the younger grades, continuing that celebration of Virginia Lee Burton and the Folly co-designers, but rather than 3rd grade, we wanted to reach the 2nd graders. Part of it was we realized a lot of the 3rd graders, they'd already read the books in 2nd grade, so we were sort of targeting curriculum. And also we run a 3rd grade program we piloted this year. We're going to run again next year, where we saw every 3rd grader in 4 towns, including Rockport. We had Darius Coombs, who's a culture keeper and educator from the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe, come and work with the kids at the Cam Green in the Weetu, which was part of our Native initiatives and built by a consultant group from the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe. So all the 3rd graders had a museum experience, so we thought, okay, well, let's work with the 2nd graders this year, which was a lot of fun. So this year, the project was, again, that first day learning about Folly Cove designers, the books, the prints, the people, the place, the ideas. But then we gave them blocks that were shaped like a sea serpent scale. And we looked at Cassie the sea serpent, which is it's a museum logo mascot that's based on the Cape Ann, the Gloucester sea serpent of 1817. And so the kids got to make their own scale. And when I went in, the way I introduced the project was, we're here to make a piece of art with you that's going to be hung in the museum. What do you think of that? And they all get excited. So they made their scale, and I had I had 387 times about 3 or 4 scales, and chose one from each student, and they became part of a larger collaboration. Mike Grimaldi is an illustrator who is from Cape Ann and is the creator of the image that we use at the museum for Cassie, who's our family-friendly sea serpent and can be found throughout the galleries. So he and a contractor that we work with locally, we built a wooden Cassie that fills 2 walls of that large gallery that the 8th grade project is in, and then hung every school, every class is sort of ordered throughout the gallery on those loops. Here's an example. So on the left, you have some kids looking at the diploma, and they're able to see Virginia Lee Burton created a diploma for each of her students that completed their first print and was officially a Folly Cove designer. And what's wonderful is that the whole print takes you through the process. So after doing this whole process, the kids would look at this at the end. It was kind of our wrap up. Oh yeah, I see, the rollers in that. I see her thinking, and get to reflect on it. And some of the schools will come in and come to the museum and look at the Folly Cove designers' materials in the library. We have mock-ups of Mike Mulligan and the steam shovel. We have sketches that led to Katie and the Big Snow, so the kids get to look at how a professional artist developed their ideas. And these are books that they recognize, the finished book. And this is an example of, we get them in the galleries in addition to the Folly Cove material. And we try and do things in the gallery, try and make it really interactive. So they're learning through discovery. And there's nothing like drawing a piece of artwork to really learn it and then talk about what you've seen. Oh, thanks. I didn't know this slide was in here.
You're welcome.
So yes, that's what I looked like about 3 weeks ago, trying to figure out make sure I print for every child and get them all organized. And you can see the 3 loops on one wall with a head, and the opposite wall had 3 loops and a tail. And it was really fun. We had an opening. And kids have been coming in steadily and going up there and finding their print. And at the museum, a lot of what we're doing, I grew up in an art family. I knew how to do a museum. Like, that was not intimidating to me. Some of my friends never went to museums as kids, but were brave enough to walk into these strange places and go, what do I do when I stand in front of this painting, right? And people come to museums for different reasons. They're motivated for different reasons. So a lot of what we're doing is teaching kids, what is a museum? And I always ask them, who here has a collection? And all the hands go up, and they got Pokemon and gems and coins and all sorts of sea glass. And then we just say, well, we're a big fancy collection. And what does that mean? And why do we collect? And how do we look at a painting? And the fact that even though art can be a very individual experience, I let them know someone's going to come to the museum and see your artwork. You may never meet them. You may never cross paths, but they've seen your artwork and you've inspired an idea in them, and that helps create community. And it's that social part of art and being able to see, what is someone else feeling about this? What did that mean to them? And being able to bridge that gap. And so teaching kids from an early age that museums are places where we come together to form community. We come together to ask questions. And so when they see their art as part of a collaborative piece, they really get that. It's theirs, and it's also ours, right? And they get that social piece of the museum. So really rewarding to see them come and enjoy that part of it.
I just wanted to include this without letting Kathy know in advance, to show the amount of work that goes into installing the artwork in the museum. Because truly, she was in there for over a week cutting around the scales, and that's after doing, I think between 8th grade and 2nd and 3rd grade this year, we did over 75 school visits just for this project, which is less than half of our entire educational offerings, which is less than half of our entire programmatic offerings. So if you ever see Kathy and I running around carrying large bags of art supplies, you know why. And thank you for helping us do that. I did just briefly want to say that this year, for the first time, we got to include high schoolers in this project. This was an addition kind of at the end with the Gloucester Daily Times exhibition. So we didn't quite get Rockport high schoolers yet, but they're on my list. We worked with the Gloucester High School AP photography class, which is run by Emily Herney, and all of those students heard from myself and our photo archivist about what a photo archive means, what an archival position could be at a museum. And then they came to the Gloucester Daily Times exhibition and had to choose examples from the exhibit to recreate. So they chose these and then went out into their own communities as photojournalists, and each of those little labels is a photojournalist label written by a high school student. It's really, really wonderful if you visit to take the time and read them all, because you just see so much about who these students are from those short sentences, and you see so much about what our community is from how teenagers engage with it. This was mostly done in March, so I'd say over half of them have like these kind of sad little snippets about, well, when it finally is sunny again, it'll be really nice. So we'll see. I put enough photos in that if this doesn't work, it's okay. But just in case, we also, while we go, oh my God, technology. Every time we take photographs and videos. So this is actively playing in the galleries throughout the exhibition. This is the second year that we've done it. So you can see, like Kathy said, the mayhem of the 2nd and 3rd graders printing. I am in such awe of our educators who go in and do this. I did it a couple of years ago and now gladly pass it along. But it's really, really fun to see the joy they get from it, how tactile it is, how much the teachers get to engage with what they're doing. It is very messy, which doesn't always happen in our school systems nowadays.
I just say too,
please.
and a thank you. I'm not sure I will, Dr. Waller. You had at least one of my children in your class, Ethan Kelly. But the teachers have been so amazing and welcoming. It's hard to have someone new in your classroom and you don't know what are they going to say to your kids and how is it all going to go down, and that one kid who might be hard. So thank you to the teachers in this community for really partnering with us.
Mm-hmm. So we've got a couple of these snippets here, and I think we're gonna get pretty soon to our 8th grade. Oh, well, you see 8th graders cutting through. It's very similar, but they're about twice as big. Cutting through those. And then we did want to just think, in a lot of this is happening in the memory of the late John Burns, and then the support of, for the first year, we've had the support of every cultural council across Cape Ann whose school system we goes into. But Rockport has supported us all along, so we're very, very grateful for that, and we expect to just continue to offer these, continue to grow, and I cannot wait until our first class of 3rd graders does their 8th grade project. That's what I will feel like I have arrived. I haven't counted the number of years yet. But one of the things we're seeing is that repetition of school offerings. That's why we're trying to get to every Cape Ann public school student every year, so that they know that the museum is their resource to tell their stories and to very, very literally show their artwork. So I think that's all we have for you today.
We have about 2 minutes for questions.
Oh, sure. Happy to take questions. Please, in the back there.
Have you given any thought to offering programs like this for adults?
Oh,
Yeah.
we do. So not with an exhibition component. I would say all of our exhibitions are adult exhibitions. But we do offer adult education at the museum. So we're currently we just started block printing in color, a 6-week course, and then Introduction to Water-Based Oil Painting, a 6-week course. So we offer those in the fall, winter, and spring, and then we do hands-on workshops. We may come back around. That original project that we did, quilted together with the community portraits, was open to all ages. So one of those may come back in. We'll see.
You had a better answer than I expected. I really just wanted to compliment you on how wonderful these programs sound.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, we like to work with people at all ages.
And there's one up right now, so, and it's really wonderful.
Yes, yeah. So the Cassie the Sea Serpent impressions and snapshots are both on view. We have the exhibition postcards on the table back there. So come, bring your friends. The more people who come see them, the easier it is for me to tell the museum how many more we should be doing. Did you have something to add, Kathy?
Well, I was just going to say that when we do interactive activities for the kids in the galleries, sometimes it's the adults who sit down and stay the longest and do them. And they'll always approach the table and say, well, I haven't done crafts since like 6th grade, And we're like, well, why don't you try it? And then 2 hours later, they're like, this was so fun, And it's really great because these conversations happen at the art making table. And that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, was there another question? Yep.
Was that permanent ink on those rollers?
No, no, just water-based. And, the kids always ask me, they're like, is this going to come off? They get a little worried. I'm like, it'll all come off. So, and they're good. We have it kind of down. We have a process. We try and bring multiple educators into classrooms to make sure that it's a really positive experience for all the kids. They get that one-on-one attention. So we haven't had like ink on clothes and things like that because for some kids, that their clothes are really important and not replaceable, and so we make a big effort to make sure the project's successful in lots of ways for all of them. But no, it's not permanent.
Excellent.
I just wanted to note that sketching the moon project would be great. It would be great if the moon was out, if it was clear. You could just the kids typically have very good eyes, but they have trouble looking through binoculars. But they could sketch just what they see, and that would be kind of fun to find out what they see. It could be done by looking at the moon, the actual moon, or working with photographs. It's just a thought.
Absolutely. Well, we were back there taking notes on that, and on the Halibut State Park video was also so lovely. We talked a lot about granite and the granite industry in some of our school trips. So we're currently brainstorming the 2024-2025 school. I always have to get that right in my head. Cape Ann Student Exhibition. So stay tuned and join us next April for next year's.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope one of you Jeff Lyon, representing the old Sloop, and this will end perhaps with a performance
It will,
by Aaron Ash Sullivan.
provided that I speak quickly. Our very first concert was on a warm August evening, and at intermission, everyone went outside because it was too hot in the hall where we were doing the show. And somebody dropped a cigarette on the ground, which lit a pile of leaves, which lit the corner of the building. So one of our volunteers hustled the audience out of the building. Another volunteer called the fire department. I grabbed the fire extinguisher, and we finished up the concert out on the front lawn of the church while the fire department poked holes in the walls looking for hot spots. We were sure the church trustees were going to say, well, that sounded like a good idea, but that's enough. To our surprise, they let us continue, and here we are today. And that's the slide that was supposed to show while I said that. All right, we're going to let this go now. My name is Jeff Lyon. I'm one of the coordinators of Old Sloop Presents. We have performing for us today Aaron Ash Sullivan, and believe me, you want to hear Aaron and not me, so I will be really quick. This presentation is just a visual snapshot of different things that we've done over the years. There's a combination of photographs from our shows and artist publicity photos and signs and posters and all sorts of stuff. Old Sloop Coffee House was created to thank the town of Rockport, the people of the town of Rockport, for their support of the church. The church sanctuary is the building that was formerly the Sandy Bay Parish Meeting House. It's an historic building, was built in 1804. It needs tons of work to keep it up, and the church has been the beneficiary of about $500,000 in Community Preservation Act funds. So the coffee house was created as one way to thank the community for that support. We've had lots of memorable concerts. This was supposed to pause at a slide showing a cover of a CD from a very excellent local band called KBMG, who recorded their CD, a live CD, at one of their Old Sloop concerts. Another memorable time was when we had Laurie McKenna, multiple Grammy Award winner Laurie McKenna, headlined a show for us, and the opener for that show was Rose Cousins, who's a multiple Canadian Juno Award winner. So we had some royalty in our house for that concert. Like all other performance venues, we had to shut down during COVID, and during that time we decided that we were going to expand our offerings a little bit. We hoped that we would be able to offer some jazz music, and our church music department often offered concerts of jazz or classical music, and we hope to sort of fold those into the offering as well. We thought that the word coffee house had a little bit too much of a folk music vibe for that new mission, so we changed our name to Old Sloop Presents. We are very grateful to the Rockport Cultural Council, which has been a faithful supporter. We've received 12 grants, which amounted to $3,430. What we have used those grants for is to offer some performers who are less well known on Cape Ann. We're committed to paying performers fairly, and the only way that we could pay somebody who was going to draw a small audience was to get some outside help. So that's what the Rockport Cultural Council grants have been really good for. There are just 3 more concerts in our upcoming season. Please attend. We'd love to see you at a concert. This evening we're going to hold our 150th concert. Just coincidentally, it just happened to be 150 today. The headliner for that concert is the Honey Dewdrops. We first presented the Honey Dewdrops in 2011 with the support of a Rockport Cultural Council grant. And since then we've had them back 2 more times. They'll be back for a 3rd time tonight. And opening that concert is Aaron Ash Sullivan, who's a wonderful singer-songwriter from Western Massachusetts. We convinced her to come a little bit early so she can sing a couple of songs for you and give you a taste of what our concerts are like. Erin is an award-winning songwriter. She's been the winner of the Rose Garden Coffee House Performing Songwriter Competition, the Marcarelli Judges' Choice Award, and the New England Songwriting Competition, and a finalist in the Great American Song Contest and the Mid-Atlantic Song Contest. So, with that, let me turn it over to Erin.
All right.
Muddy footprints stretch on up ahead. I can see him in the late day golden light. If we're lucky, he'll come back with both boots still upon his feet. Someone's gonna need a bath tonight. Come winter, they draw the water down and leave the mud behind. Bear Hill Pond becomes just ground and sky. Come winter, we come down and walk for hours, but I don't mind, 'cause I know it will be over by and by. And we walk the flats, we chase the day. We tell ourselves the shore is not so far away. Our footsteps tell the tale of where we've been, till the water rushes in. He pulls his mittens off to gather treasure in his hand, to find the perfect stick to write his name. A rusted, grounded rowboat sweeps him off to foreign lands. The tiny tyrant stakes his claim, and we walk the flats, we chase the day. We tell ourselves the shore is not so far away. Our footsteps tell the tale of where we've been, till the water rushes in. And he stops beside a boulder where his fingers trace the waterline, and asks, when will the water start to flow? And he's off again before I can collect myself and answer him, my darling, so much sooner than you know. And we walk the flats, we chase the day. I tell myself that time is still so far away. Our footsteps tell the tale of where we've been, till the water rushes in. Our footsteps tell the tale of where we've been, till the water rushes in. Till the water rushes in.
Thanks very much. I'm so happy to be here this afternoon, and I'm so grateful to Jeff and Celine for inviting me to represent Old Sloop. So my name is Erin Ash Sullivan. I'm a singer-songwriter, and I was really taken by what Miranda and Kathy were saying about developing a sense of place, because that's what I really focus on in my own songwriting. I tend to get hyper-local. So that song takes place in my hometown of Harvard, and a lot of my songs are really just written from my own experience, because that's what I know. So hopefully by the end of these songs, you feel like you've gotten to know me pretty well. In point of fact, this next song is about my grandmother, who was also a singer. And when she was a young woman, she escaped the Midwest to pursue her dreams of stardom in New York City. And she sang in USO clubs during the war, and she auditioned for Broadway musicals, and was actually cast in the original Broadway production of Oklahoma, but left before the show opened to marry my grandfather. So by the time I knew her, she was just my grandmother. And of course, by the time I thought to ask her any questions about her life as a performer, it was too late. So I wrote this song instead.
How did it feel to be a daughter late in life to a mother was sure she didn't wanna be a wife. What'd you say to your Irish dad, who always seemed so silent and sad? What was it like to know you could sing and know that was the most important thing? Courage was the chords on a piano. How did it feel to board that train, your hands against the window pane, and say goodbye to Gary, Indiana? How did it feel to stand on that stage, a light in your eyes, your hands shaking on the page, your voice maybe trembling with all you could feel, and those men in the dark saying your dreams were real? What'd you think when that boy sauntered in and undid you with his lazy grin? You could almost hear your mother sigh with pity. What'd you say when you turned in your keys to your tiny room and your melodies, and said goodbye to dreams of New York City? What was it like to have a love so vast that you almost didn't mind what you left in the past? What'd you say each time you wanted to move and left you in a new place with something to prove? Did you give your all at a talent show, or blow the back walls out in another church solo, exhausted by the effort of believing? And in each new room, what did you put on the shelf to remind you that you were still yourself, despite all of the places you were leaving? Oh, 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 What was it like to know a girl with your hands who told you all her dreams and played in a band? What was the advice that died on your lips as their songs poured out of her fingertips? How'd you know that the best you could do was to tell her that she had to see it through? While inside your mind was teeming with the stories of a girl who felt like she was still 19, when her eyes were blue and her slate was clean, sitting on a train from Gary, dreaming of future glories. Man, I wish I thought to ask you for your stories. I wish I'd asked you for your stories.
Thank you. Celine, one more or two more? Jeff? Time for one more or two more? I want to respect the clock.
Probably one, right, Bill?
Stick to one?
Depends on how long the song is.
Ah, I got 2 3-minute songs.
You can
So
do it
it's
all.
not Inagata Davida?
No. You know, when my daughter was little, she would ask how long it would take to get places. We would do long drives, and we would measure it in Inagata Davidas. How long to Disneyland? It's about 4 Inagata Davidas. All right, so as I said, I come from Harvard, and I actually couldn't wait to get out when I graduated from high school, and then somehow weirdly I moved back, and that was weird. Cool Teresa, you were nothing but cool Teresa, with your flawless hair and authentic concert tees. I was making good grades, but you were making your way, Teresa. The way you totaled out that till like you could do just what you pleased. Then you said, let's be friends just for summer or something. I guess that you'd be better than nothing. Slim pickings in this godforsaken town.
was shy, Teresa, but you could make a shift fly, Teresa. We took turns changing for the beach behind the break room door. You let it fly on 95, my first friend who could drive. Salt in our hair as we came back from the shore. And you'd said, let's be friends just for summer or something. I guess that you'd be better than nothing. Slim pickings in this God-forsaken town. And I remember how you ducked behind the counter and waited there till your actual friends walked away. You brushed it off and brushed your hair, said I just couldn't be that girl today. You landed on your feet, Teresa, bought a big house down the street, Teresa. I see your face on the real estate sign in my neighbor's yard. Sometimes I see you at the store, a friendly nod and nothing more, Teresa. So when you said hello today, it caught me a little off guard. 'Cause you'd said, let's be friends just for summer or something. I guess that you'd be better than nothing. Slim pickings in this God-forsaken town. Teresa, Teresa. One more song, and then if you want to hear more, you should come back to Old Sloop tonight. So I'll play some different things. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to tell you about me before I go is that in my youth, I like to brag about this, I was the 2-time winner of my hometown's 4th of July pie eating contest. I was very proud of that. And so this song is about what happened just a couple of years ago when I was no longer quite so youthful. I decided that, much like Rocky, I needed to go back into training and win back the belt. And so this is what happened when I went to the pie eating contest very recently. I'm telling you a true tale of not so long ago. 4th of July, sun was high, flags waving slow. My whole hometown had gathered for a wholesome day of fun. A big parade, some lemonade, some games for everyone. I walked on by the egg toss and the children's happy cries, left behind the greased pole to a soul with stronger thighs, 'cause a table full of cherry pies was where I had to be. A tiny voice inside my head was calling out to me, eat the pie, eat the pie. Don't care if they might point and stare, don't let them ask you why. 'Cause that sweetness brings a sweetness that money just can't buy. I'm telling you, go on and eat the pie. My town's pie eating contest, it's been a point of pride for me. I won it twice in middle school, at 12 and then 13, for a nerdy, bookish weirdo who was cut from every team. The thought of winning any ribbon was a kind of fever dream. Now a fully grown-up woman should have hobbies, I suppose. Eating pie in record time might not be one of those. So I turned away, maintaining my respectable veneer. But still that tiny voice went on and whispered in my ear, eat the pie, eat the pie. Don't care if they might point and stare, don't let them ask you why. 'Cause that sweetness brings a sweetness that money just can't buy. I'm telling you, go on and eat the pie. And as I hovered by the entrance, I found myself impressed by the existential crisis that bloomed within my breast. Would I let other people's shoulds and shouldn'ts riddle me with doubt? Would I give in to what was safe? Let the whole world count me out, don't count me out. So I walked up to that table, took my place behind a pie. Some brawny guys twice my size arranged on either side. The town citizen of note who is proud to play his part shushed the crowd till they were silent, then proclaimed that we could start. The competitors ate valiantly and rushed to cram it in. Rumors ricocheted as people wondered who would win. Caught up in the moment and the crowd's excited shrieks, I opened wide, shoved the pie inside with the extra in my cheeks. I ate the pie, the whole damn pie, and the townfolk raised a cheer as I held that blue ribbon high. 'Cause that sweetness brings a sweetness that money just can't buy. I'm telling you, if fate provides a chance for you to feel alive, don't worry if it's right for you or what you should and should not do. Say yes and open wide and eat the pie.
Thanks very much, and thanks to Old Sloop for inviting me.
Okay, the first and obvious thing is we gotta eat the pie. We're in a situation where Kathy brought up the whole notion of community. Culture is our shared values and beliefs. I'm humbled to be on this committee for the first time and seeing the huge efforts that have been made. So to ask to do more seems to be really selfish. But what ideas do you have that you think we need to expand both in size and reach of bringing culture to the community? That's an easy one.
A bigger parking lot, perhaps.
Oh, that's what I read.
Has nothing to do with the arts, but this is a town that it's a miracle that tonight Jeff and Celine and myself will have live concerts and this simultaneously. And whenever we catch up with each other, I always feel, are we putting a dent into the coffee house? Resounding no, and that from the very first get-go was very important. I'm CEO at Shalumo Performance Center, so I've been always worried about that and how we sort of pushed our way in with a building and everything, but the infrastructure of the town is really at a breaking point in terms of accommodating cultural experiences of all kinds, whether it's the art galleries, the concerts, you name it. And I don't know. Of course, that's not an immediate solution to that. But I think you always have to keep that in your back pocket and think about it going forward. Just because there may be a solution, there may not. But what if you can't expand? What you can always do is go the other way and continue to raise the quality of what you're already doing too.
So you're seeing the possibility that the amount of infrastructure, meaning venues, are at their peak at the moment, and that's an issue you would like to see expanded?
Well, that's a possibility, but with expansion becomes more amenities, shall we say, restaurants, parking. It's the same old story we talk about in Rockport all the time, but it's really true. And when you have a 330 seat concert hall and it's sold out, people are driving around all the time, especially in the summer at matinees. I mean, I can tell you the times, and and the other thing is, because of that, those venues or whatever and usage and everything, all the great work that's done by other arts groups that don't have an advertising budget or size as Rockport Music, they just sort of have a struggle. And I've seen it, and you can some can sort of get out of that miasma, but others try. Think of all the art galleries that come and go, and for that very self-same reason. And so I think that's what has to be thought about, perhaps.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
I think there are more opportunities for collaboration between these groups. I was really struck today by the great work that's being done by all these other organizations that have presented today. And for us to work together to present some things that are it's a mixture of visual arts and performing arts, for instance, it seems like there's an opportunity there as well that we could make better use of.
I'm glad you brought that up because it seemed to me like I wasn't necessarily thinking of an arithmetic progression, but a multiplied type of enhancement. So collaboration would seem to be something that would expand. Do you see any of that happening or could happen? What would you like to see? You're nodding.
Yes. So at the Rockport Library, we're always looking for collaborators in our community. Right now, we're wrapping up last night the second year of a teen arts collaborative, which has met bi-weekly all school year doing art projects. They feed the kids dinner. It's a positive, nice thing for them to do on a Friday night, keeps them off the streets. That's been a collaboration between us, Art Haven in the past, and the Rockport Art Association Museum. We're looking into future collaborations with the Art Association as well. And I would say, just to the point of the infrastructure, I would really like to see us using or encouraging the use of the park and ride that we have already, and just trying to keep cars off the streets downtown. I mean, we saw how much everyone loved it during the pandemic when we had sidewalk dining, and these are things that can make the community more vibrant without adding more cars on the streets.
So emphasizing more walking type of community and put the cars somewhere else and come in.
We have a trolley.
What do you think is lacking? What is a cultural aspect that you don't feel is getting enough attention? Yes.
It's not that I think there's some pieces that would help. I'm really glad you brought up the parking issue, because that so much is dependent on that. But one of the things I'd really like to see is a community calendar that's offered by our IT department by the town, and that people and organizations upload their own information. So there could be menus that drop down. You're responsible for maintaining your own calendar entry there. And usually when these community calendars fall apart, it's because one organization, one person is trying to gather everything from others. But if people are responsible for maintaining their own schedules on the calendar, it's more likely to be current. That's one. And then it seems to me, where am I even writing here? You could also, in that same kind of calendar, you could have a cultural listing and a link. So you could have the name, you can do basically an index. So you could find any number of organizations by their name, have a link next to it that shoots you to their website. That's pretty straightforward. But I think that should be a kind of service that's offered by our IT department from the town. It's an infrastructure using the available, network and the digital world.
So I think the Mass Cultural Council and the Mass Poetry Council, they have a central repository for all of the things that are going on, and you sort of get permission to have access to it. And then everyone puts their events up so you know at any given time where they are. So it seems like you're saying there should be something like that that expanded people's immediate awareness of what was going on where. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, I think that if not everybody's going to go looking at the Mass Cultural Council website or out. I think that if we can link it locally, so people can find it from multiple directions, locally.
Okay.
Then it's more likely to be something that people will find.
I was doing the cultural council things as an example. So this would be a local Rockport culture, and people would know getting to one website or one source for everything that was going on.
It's worth a try.
We do have a beautiful new town website, and I think that it does have the capacity to do this kind of calendar. We would just have to talk to IT about it. So this is doable, I think.
Do you think we're not answering a particular need somewhere?
I can speak to that because there's so many artists in our community, and the Rockport Cultural Council has really helped a lot of people, but there's so many that don't have access to funds. They don't have access to places to perform, to show, to connect with each other, to build the community that we want to see. And it's also more generational. Like, it's great to see what you're doing with the young people in the schools. But once you get out of school, we don't want to lose our community. And so many young people are moving away. We all know housing is an issue, but they also don't have the opportunity for community like they did when they were in school.
So somehow or other, to have a more energetic artist collective for adults.
I think so. Younger adults. We want the younger people who in our community to stay.
Okay.
And there aren't places for them to go together. Maybe they go bowling. But for them to have places to come and share, I could see like the Rockport Art Association doing something like that, offering times, or the library, but just to think about them, how can we help them, and also for funding, that's something, micro grants that could potentially be given.
So many other places have a building that has shared gallery space, but it isn't limited to one type of art. And it is a place where artists can connect and discuss and display their stuff and sort of encourage each other to grow. A friend of mine said there's no geniuses. Whenever you see a famous individual whose work of art is in a museum and you look, they were in a community where they were cross-pollinating. And he said, it's not a genius, it's a genius. And so are you suggesting that kind of idea would be something that's lacking?
Yes, I think it is.
Okay, what do everyone else think about that?
Well, there's a community center, for example. It's the question about space and infrastructure and using existing space. I mean, I don't think there's, we've really looked at what are all the spaces and what are they being used for. And Spyron Hall is one of them that is really quite wonderful and has a theater and probably could benefit from, you know, some support as well. But that's I mean, you've just pointed out a need that, and then it's a question of space and probably costing them and so forth. But I think that's partly, you know, what do they want? What would be really interesting for them? What would they be likely to gather? It has a bunch of questions attached to it. So it's, but I think that's, you know, very interesting idea to be able to. That's where
That could be a good performance venue, but I'm wondering, when I think about the collectives, there's potters there, there's space for dancers, there's painters. I guess we could periodically cover the hall of the community center with plastic, I guess. Where do you think we might be able to have an infrastructure resource, something that isn't utilized now, that space could be given over to something like an artist collective, where we don't have to be too clean?
I would say this also just boils down to a lack of affordable housing, and people can't afford to live here. There's no rental stock available. I mean, yes, artists need studios, they need gallery space, they need performance space, but more than anything, they need housing that they can afford. So that's really the root of this problem, I think.
Okay.
You know, I think it's something that Gloucester, I hope, looks at very carefully as they're doing their planning right now. Looking at spaces, you were talking about doing a survey of natural spaces in the community with the Cape Ann Climate Coalition, the Harvard Graduate School, but also, you know, driving here. This is what I was thinking about. I was driving by the tool company, driving by the former print shop across the street, thinking about, wow, woodwork space, young people. You know, in Amesbury and other places, there are certain people, and there are people who have stepped forward, and they have bought. This one woman, I couldn't believe it. She bought a mill building specifically to be able to offer it to artists that they could afford it. You know, she's not looking at making a lot of money herself. She's hoping to cover her costs. And we need that kind of support in our community to keep it as vibrant as it is right now.
I think that's a brilliant insight. I know that building that you're talking about. There's one in Beverly that works that way. There's the Lynn Community Arts Space. There are places where people can go, and I guess my head was stuck thinking downtown, but that is an obvious place that would have enough space that somehow or other it could be set aside.
Another place that comes to mind that is downtown is the old firehouse, which belongs to the town.
And that would be a brilliant space too. How could we get momentum or funding or get a start on doing something like this? The difference for me, the difference between the idea and the actuality is action. So what is the way that we could act to start to implement something like this? Is it hopeless?
No.
Well, I think you would have to sort of figure out what the options are. You know, whether it's Tool Factory, the old firehouse, Spyron Hall even. I don't know, there must be other buildings. And you know, the model, of course, is the warehouse where there are studios and lofts and places for work and live. But I don't think that can happen because there's no such building, at least at the top of my head in Rockport. But what if you did identify something, then you have to build an operational plan around it, how, you know, envision it. And because if you're gonna, whoever you're gonna be asking for money, whether it's the government, the town, or donors, they wanna see what it's gonna be. So you sort of have to have an enlivened viewpoint of it, of what it is, and renderings and all that. I mean, it gets very expensive very quickly, and I've been there and done that, but that's the way it goes in order to get the spark going. Because you can talk about it forever, but you have to get a group together, have a plan, have a project, flesh it out, and then present it, and with confidence. And that's another whole process in and of itself. But it's very clarifying as to what you want. Then you know what you want, what you're going for.
So we're a town committee, okay? Does the town actually want something like this? Does the town actually want culture? Does the town actually want vibrancy?
Those are good questions. I mean, but you have to, if you're going to do something like this, you have to have those answered. You have to.
Well, to me, that's the single question.
I think it's individuals. I mean, the person who started Mud Flats, remember Mud Flats? That's a couple that started that, individuals, and it's a wonderful, thriving ceramics school, and fosters visiting artists, and the quality there is just growing. It's really fabulous. But that's two people who had the vision and went to and saw the gap and then went after it. So trying to throw it out like this, to me, it's really you have to have the idea, but you have to have people who will actually build it. And so another example for artist housing was, I think it's called the Piano Factory that's in Boston. That's all places that are combined living space and studio space for artists. And I don't know how but that's maybe a place to start if somebody here is interested in pursuing this. But it really takes someone who wants to figure out how to do it. And you can look at a lot of different models. Another one is the stove factory in Charlestown, and so that's it was cheap space for a while, and it's very rapidly climbing. But that half of that building is artist studios, and they're leased, and they're sort of chopped up. You can even get an 8 by 8 foot space, which is so being able to get smaller spaces to larger spaces is good too. But it really takes that first became loft space because it was cheap, and the other half is actually a rag factory that makes polishing rags, and etc. So that was just a way to use the space, and now it's fairly pricey as a space, but it takes people to figure it out. So to throw the idea out is really needed is good, but it's really got to be certain individuals to.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that there are a lot of models and people who have come up with that, and probably most of you don't know that Miranda Ashleen is here. She first came here to write a project just like this for the Briscoe School in Beverly. And she was an artist resident at the Manship Artist Residency, one of our first residents. She was working on this project to come up with a plan that she submitted to the city of Beverly to turn the Briscoe School into a place like this. The community was very much supportive of it. I don't really know all the politics of it, but unfortunately, they decided to put senior housing in that facility instead. And I don't know how many of you know people who live in Beverly and how many of them are mourning Montserrat is still there, but it's very difficult for artists there now, and many of them are leaving, and that would have been a great home for them.
I had another thought. It's the same group of people with the people who came up with the idea for Mudflat. There's in the stove factory, but one of them was ran the industrial design shop at Mass Art, and he was also part of a team that designed a house for, it's part of the Solar Decathlon. Every 2 years, the Department of Energy runs Solar Decathlon. They give an award to 20 teams to design houses. So this is like, and it's, I think it's adaptable to artist space. So their particular project was a house, 2,000 square feet, cost $100,000. Everything was off the shelf, so nothing was specialized, and it was green. So that, you know, if we can figure out, because our housing thing is not set in stone yet, you know, this is coming along, but if we can fold this into the mix, this kind of thing maybe is possible. Also, I proposed the idea of, when I was in camping years ago, I camped in Oregon where they had campsites that were, you couldn't, they were great. They were isolated, you know, they were tiny, but in their campsites, but you couldn't see the next one. So I thought, well, why can't you put that together with tiny houses? So that there's a, you know, that gives you some sense of a space and something that's pleasant and being, you know, having green around you and not being in a rabbit warren, which I think is pretty important. But those ideas are possible to fold into the you know, affordable housing thing that's moving forward right now, and that may be a way to be able to find space for, so that none of us have to go and invent this thing. But to be able to, because a developer, we might be able to find a developer to do this, but to be able to fold that into the package so that we can get space for artists, that would be, I think tiny houses, when I first looked at those, if you built it yourself, they were $45,000. Had them build it, it was $75,000. That was about a 900 square foot house at the time. That was a while ago.
So, to summarize, one of the main issues to make the art community a collective, to give a sense of community, one of the limits is infrastructure. The infrastructure would be, well, look at what you have available, and the central point of the art community would be studio space. It seemed like what was said that isn't supported enough is for artists to have a collective. I'm trying to clarify this, so correct me if I'm wrong. We've mentioned a couple of spots, but parking was also an issue, and somebody has to do it. Somebody has to make the plan. Somebody has to identify. Have I got everything that we said here so far? Who here is going to do it?
So Bob, I'm not sure I can take on that challenge quite yet. I'm relatively new to this landscape of community programming and cultural programming. I've really appreciated working alongside Miranda, and some of the things everybody's touched on. Having lived here for so long, I see happening, but and I guess maybe I sound a little naive here, but I always come back to the relationship building, right? Because there are a lot of challenging issues, and you know, there's limited resources at times. Sometimes there's more resources than we realize, and it's finding ways to channel those or put them together. And sometimes there are conflicting interests. And I just want to sort of share, as part of your summary, what I've seen really working. We've been involved in a number of partnerships, and a lot of times when Miranda and I sit down and brainstorm a program together, we always return to, well, what is it we're actually doing for our partners here? You know, because it's, you know, from my perspective, I'm doing all these museum programs, right? But I'm always trying to say, yeah, but what is my program doing for the schools? Or what is it doing for this group of people who really doesn't have a voice yet, or doesn't see themselves as maybe having a place here? You know, it's always going back to that relationship building, the working together,
and the listening, right? Listening, and sometimes that's making a space for people who aren't speaking up for themselves to find out what are the barriers, what are your interests, what are your values, and then how can our values work together, right? Because I know I want a certain thing, and I know all the reasons why, and stopping and listening to other people, and sometimes that's a little Pollyanna, right? A little naive to sort of say, oh, we're all going to talk and agree. Doesn't always work that way, but definitely the more partnerships that happen, and again, this is a little optimistic, but I like to think that when I do these collaborative art projects between 4 towns, that as Cape Ann experiencing things like climate change and rising sea water, that because we've all gotten to know each other around the art table and we've built that relationship, now we have more trust going into a difficult decision-making process. So I think these cultural things that are happening are really wonderful ways for people to get to know each other and trust each other and listen to each other, so that when we have to make those hard decisions, we have some relationship there that helps us.
And it brings us full circle to culture is shared values and beliefs. And what do we want? My job was to host today, but I feel strongly about this. There are provocative questions involved in this. Do people want fiefdoms, or do they want a group that works together? How can we say we'd like to have this art in a space that maybe has been dedicated to another, that kind of collaborative? Maybe we can find someone else to donate a building for and a studio. I mean, the Sharon Lou used to be a clothing store. So it seems there's a daydream about this. The question would be, how much energy can we put into it? And I can't solve that, and I can't come to that conclusion today. But this has been very helpful, and I appreciate all your input. I think I want to applaud what's being done already. I think we keep going in that direction, we'll be fine. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.